Before Oda Nobunaga became the man who changed Japan, there was one warlord he had reason to fear. Not a lord from Kyoto, not a ruler of the capital, but a mountain warlord from Kai province. His army moved west through the mountains with discipline, silence, and purpose, and if he had lived just a little longer, Japan's future might have changed forever. By the early 1570s, Oda Nobunaga was rising fast. He had entered Kyoto, he had defeated powerful enemies, and he was beginning to look like the man who could dominate central Japan. But Nobunaga was not yet unstoppable. To the east, his most important ally was Tokugawa Ieyasu, and beyond Ieyasu's lands, in the mountains of Kai, waited a man whose name carried fear across the battlefield: Takeda Shingen. When Ieyasu tried to stop him, he was defeated. At Mikatagahara, Tokugawa Ieyasu suffered one of the worst defeats of his life. His army broke, his men scattered, and the road west suddenly looked open. If Ieyasu fell, Nobunaga's eastern shield would collapse, and behind that shield stood Kyoto. His name was Takeda Shingen, the Tiger of Kai, a ruler, a strategist, a commander feared by enemies and respected by rivals. He never ruled Japan, he never reached Kyoto. But for one moment, he may have been the man who could stop Nobunaga's rise. Shingen was born in 1521 in Kai province, a harsh mountain land far from the wealth of the coast. Kai was not an easy place to rule. Its valleys were narrow, its roads were difficult, its resources were limited. But that difficult land shaped the Takeda clan. It created warriors who understood discipline, endurance, and survival. Before he became Shingen, he was known as Takeda Harunobu. As a young man, he grew up watching a dangerous world from the mountains. The Sengoku period was not a time of peace. It was an age where fathers fought sons, brothers betrayed brothers, and survival often mattered more than blood. Harunobu learned that lesson early. The Takeda were not rulers of a grand capital. They ruled from a mountain power base, practical, disciplined, and constantly prepared for war. Every decision mattered: food, water, roads, alliances, armies. In Kai, a weak ruler could not survive for long. Harunobu's father, Takeda Nobutora, was a powerful daimyo, but power did not always mean stability. Nobutora was feared. His rule was harsh, and within the Takeda clan, tension grew. In the Sengoku period, even a father could become a political threat. In 1541, Harunobu made his move. He forced his own father into exile. This was not a battlefield victory, it was a political coup. A son took power from his father, not with chaos, but with cold calculation. It revealed something important about the man he would become. Takeda Shingen was not ruled by sentiment, he was ruled by strategy. Nobutora left Kai behind, and Harunobu became the leader of the Takeda clan. It was a brutal beginning, but in the Sengoku period, brutality was often the price of survival. From that moment forward, Harunobu would build not just a clan, but a war machine. Shingen was not only a battlefield commander, he was also a ruler. He understood that armies did not rise from nothing. They required land, food, labor, roads, and order. In Kai, he worked to strengthen his domain, control rivers, support agriculture, and build the foundation of military power. A great army begins long before the battle. It begins in the fields. Inside the Takeda War Council, Shingen built his reputation as a master strategist. He listened, he calculated, he waited, then he moved. His decisions were not reckless. They were measured, disciplined, and often devastating. The Takeda clan became one of the most respected military powers in eastern Japan. Shingen's strength was not his alone. Around him stood experienced retainers, commanders, and strategists. The Takeda army was not simply a group of warriors. It was a system, a disciplined military machine built around loyalty, organization, and battlefield control. By the mid-16th century, the Takeda army had become famous. Red banners, mountain roads, disciplined formations, mounted warriors. Later stories would romanticize the Takeda cavalry into legend. But what made Shingen dangerous was not myth. It was control. He knew how to move men, pressure enemies, and turn geography into a weapon. The image of Takeda cavalry became one of the most powerful symbols of the clan. But Shingen's real strength was not simply horses, it was discipline. An army that could move through mountains, strike quickly, retreat when needed, and return again. Against such an enemy, no border was truly safe. But every great warlord needs a rival. For Takeda Shingen, that rival was Uesugi Kenshin, the dragon of Echigo, a warrior with a reputation for discipline, faith, and terrifying battlefield energy. If Shingen was the tiger of Kai, Kenshin was the dragon from the north. Their rivalry centered on Shinano province. Between Kai and Echigo, the two warlords fought again and again. Neither could fully destroy the other, but their struggle became one of the defining rivalries of the Sengoku period. Tiger against dragon, strategy against intensity, mountain lord against monk warrior. The most famous stage of their rivalry was Kawanakajima, a battlefield of rivers, fog, mountains, and uncertainty. In 1561, during the Fourth Battle of Kawanakajima, the conflict reached legendary intensity. Takeda forces held their camp, Uesugi forces moved through the mist, and the battlefield became chaos. At dawn, fog covered the river plain, banners appeared and disappeared in the mist. For commanders, this was the nightmare of Sengoku warfare. You could not always see the enemy. You could only hear them. Hooves, armor, war cries. Then the attack came. Uesugi forces struck through the fog, the Takeda main camp came under pressure. Messengers ran, soldiers formed ranks, commanders shouted through smoke and confusion. For Shingen, this was not a distant battle. The danger came directly toward him. And yet Shingen remained calm. At the center of the storm, he held his command position. The image of Shingen at Kawanakajima became part of his legend, a commander surrounded by danger but not ruled by fear. In a battle of fog and confusion, calm was a weapon. But Kawanakajima came at a terrible cost. Among the dead was Takeda Nobunaga, Shingen's younger brother and one of his most trusted commanders. This was not a clean victory, it was a battlefield soaked in loss. Even legends pay in blood. Another loss was Yamamoto Kansuki, remembered as one of Shingen's strategists. Later tradition connects him deeply to the battle's failed plans and tragic cost. Whether every detail of the story is certain or not, the message is clear. At Kawanakajima, strategy met chaos, and even brilliant plans could die in the mud. Then comes the most famous legend of all. According to later accounts, Uesugi Kenshin charged into Shingen's command position and struck at him with his sword. Shingen, calm under attack, blocked the blow with his iron war fan. It is a powerful image, but it must be treated carefully. This duel is legendary, not fully confirmed by historical records. Still, it survived because it captured something true about their rivalry. Two giants of the age, locked in a struggle, neither could completely win. But Shingen's greatest threat to history did not come from Kenshin. It came from the West. By the early 1570s, Oda Nobunaga was expanding his power. Tokugawa Ieyasu guarded his eastern side. If Shingen could break Ieyasu, Nobunaga would be exposed. And beyond Nobunaga lay Kyoto, the symbolic heart of Japan. Shingen saw the opportunity. He did not need to defeat Nobunaga immediately. First, he had to break the shield in front of him. Tokugawa Ieyasu. In the command tent, the road west became the center of everything. This was more than a campaign, it was a challenge to the future Nobunaga was trying to build. In 1572, Shingen moved west. The Takeda army advanced through mountain roads and open plains. Red banners filled the road. For Ieyasu, this was a direct threat. For Nobunaga, it was a warning. The Tiger of Kai was no longer fighting only for Shinano. He was moving toward the center of Japan. Tokugawa Ieyasu knew the danger. He was younger then, not yet the patient shogun history would remember. He was a regional warlord facing one of the most feared commanders in Japan. His men prepared in the night. Maps were opened. Armor was fastened. Fires burned in the dark, but anxiety filled the camp. At Mikatagahara, the two armies faced each other. The plain was open. The sky was dark. The silence before battle carried the weight of what was coming. On one side stood the Tokugawa, on the other the Takeda, and behind the Takeda banners stood Shingen's reputation. Then the Takeda advanced, not as a chaotic mob, but with pressure, discipline, momentum. The Tokugawa line began to break. Ieyasu had tried to stop Shingen. Instead, he was forced into survival. Ieyasu barely escaped. The defeat at Mikatagahara would haunt him. For a man later remembered as patient, careful, and victorious, this was a moment of humiliation. But for Shingen, it was proof. He had crushed Nobunaga's eastern ally. The road west was now dangerous. After the battle, Ieyasu was shaken. He had survived, but survival was not victory. His armor was damaged. His army was broken. His pride had been wounded, but defeat also taught him. Ieyasu would remember Mikatagahara for the rest of his life. When news reached Nobunaga, the meaning was clear. Shingen was not just another enemy. He was a threat to the entire balance of power. If Shingen continued west, if Ieyasu could not stop him, then Nobunaga's rise could face its greatest crisis. For a moment, Japan's future held its breath. But then the campaign stopped. In 1573, during his final campaign, Takeda Shingen died before reaching Kyoto. The exact details of his illness and death remain debated. But the result is certain. The Tiger of Kai never reached the capital. The army waited in silence, and history changed quietly. No dramatic final duel, no conquest of Kyoto, no last battle against Nobunaga, only a helmet, a war fan, a command tent, and the absence of the man who had brought Nobunaga's future into question. Before Kyoto could fall into his reach, death reached Shingen first. After Shingen's death, the Takeda army turned back. The westward campaign ended. The road to Kyoto remained out of reach. For Nobunaga, the greatest immediate threat had disappeared. For the Takeda, the future became uncertain. A powerful army can march without its commander. But it cannot remain the same. Shingen's son, Takeda Katsuyori, inherited the clan. But he did not inherit his father's position. He inherited pressure, enemies, expectations, a powerful military legacy, and a future filled with danger. The Takeda name still carried fear, but without Shingen, the balance had changed. In 1575, at Nagashino, the Takeda suffered a devastating defeat against the combined forces of Oda and Tokugawa. The battle became a turning point. The old image of Takeda power met a new battlefield reality. Wooden palisades, matchlocks, smoke. Discipline on the other side, the Takeda were not destroyed in one moment. But after Nagashino, their decline became harder to stop. By 1582, the Takeda clan collapsed. The red banners that once threatened eastern Japan fell into mud, but Shingen's memory did not disappear. His name remained. The ruler from the mountains, the rival of Kenshin, the commander who defeated Ieyasu, the warlord Nobunaga had reason to fear. Takeda Shingen never ruled Japan, he never reached Kyoto, and he never fought the final war against Nobunaga. But for one moment, he may have been the man who could stop him. He defeated Ieyasu, he threatened the road to the capital, and he forced Japan's future to hold its breath. But death reached him before Kyoto did. The Tiger of Kai did not win Japan, but if he had lived just a little longer, Japan's history might have taken a very different path. For more stories of samurai, betrayal, and the battles that shaped Japan, subscribe to the Bushi Files.